A few kilometers south of the equator, spread along the Central Pacific coast of South America, 34 million Peruvians live on one of Earth's most extreme stretches of land. Cast by the Ring of Fire, the country of Peru is sliced by the massive Andean Mountains, which separates the lush Amazonian rainforest from the dry coastal deserts of the Pacific coast. The three longitudinal belts that make up the country of Peru couldn't be more different from each other, and each of them has an abundance of unique geographical features, which we'll explore in this video. To get a better context of what is to come for the rest of the video, we'll begin our journey on the open sea in front of the Peruvian shore, which already gives us an insight into the geographical extremes that we'll encounter throughout this journey. Chapter 1. The Peruvian Coast. To understand the complex and diverse climate of Peru, we first need to understand the surrounding environment, which acts upon the mainland. Located within the tropical belt around the equator, between 0 and 18 degrees south, Peru is easily the black sheep among the tropical countries. While countries like Brazil, Congo, the Maldives, Indonesia, or the South Pacific island nations all boast lush waters and warm and humid rainforests, the Peruvian coast, notably at the same latitude and elevation, feels very much out of place. With summer water temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius, it feels more similar to the Boston or Stockholm harbors, which are not typically known to be in the tropics. This persistent anomaly is caused by the Peru current. Relentless westwards trade winds and the Coriolis effect push water that travels along the shore into the Pacific Ocean, which leaves a low pressure zone behind that is being filled by upwelling cold and nutrient-rich waters from the depth of the southern Pacific. This water then acts as a heat sink, chilling the air above it and forming a persistent dome of cold and dense air over the region. Due to its low moisture holding capacity, these air masses effectively repel the surrounding tropical air masses, further insulating the Peruvian coast from warmth and humidity, and turning the coast into a seemingly lifeless desert. This assumption couldn't be further from the truth, however, since the cold and nutrient-rich waters are also the engine for one of the most productive marine ecosystems in the entire world. Marine productivity is typically given in grams of carbon per square meter of water per year, indicating the amount of plankton that is created through photosynthesis per year. While the global average hovers around 100, the Peru current boosts this to over 600 grams of carbon per square meter per year, leading to an explosion of microorganisms, which feeds the rest of the food chain. But not everything is always so predictable and constant on the coast of Peru. In an irregular cycle, the whole order of currents, nutrients, and winds gets thrown overboard, and months of chaos set in. Every 2 to 7 years, the so-called El Niño oscillations set in, which for a brief period, usually less than a year, increase the water temperature of the Central Pacific Ocean by a few degrees, significantly slowing down the Peru current and occasionally even reversing it. This has significant impacts, affecting extreme weather events like droughts and storms to be amplified across the planet. Locally, the slowing or even reversal of the Peru current leads to the pooling of warm waters in front of Peru, which prevents the needed swell of nutrient-rich water, subsequently starving out major parts of the food chain from the bottom up. Despite these periodic disruptions, massive anchovy and mackerel swarms attract countless seabirds for a year-round feast. Millions of boobies, pelicans, and albatrosses inhabit the rocky nearshore area, and with great feasts also comes great excretion. Over the centuries, many meters of this fecal matter have accumulated, especially on the rocky islands in front of Peru's coast, like the Chincha Islands in front of Paracas. Rich in potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen, guano, as the bird poop is formally called, was recognized by indigenous South Americans for its fertilizing properties long before Europeans and North Americans made their discoveries. However, once the agricultural value of guano was realized in the Western world in the early 1840s, a global race for bird poop ensued. Peru, with the largest guano reserves on the planet, quickly rose to prominence during the peak of the guano rush, and over 80% of the Peruvian government's revenue came from taxing guano exports. The frenzy lasted for several decades before dwindling, due to depleting reserves and advancements in fertilizer technology, leaving behind the scavenged rocks of the Peruvian coastline. The moisture-proof dome, which we covered earlier, is most extreme in the southern region of Peru, heavily contributing to the title of the Atacama Desert as the driest desert in the world, whose outliers also reach into Peru. Traveling north from the Atacama, the precipitation doesn't really increase any substantial amount, so the Peruvian capital Lima, for example, only receives an average of 6 millimeters of rain per year, putting it in the same category with the notorious Death Valley in California. Despite these dry conditions, the Pacific front typically presents very cloudy skies, which I can personally confirm from my trip through the fascinating nature of Peru earlier this summer. As I was getting ready for the trip, I didn't just want to immerse myself into the nature, but also get the chance to speak with the locals a bit, preferably in their own language. To get ready for this adventure, I started learning Spanish with the help of this video sponsor, Babbel, one of the top language learning apps in the world. With a language learning plan matching my schedule and customized to the goals I wanted to achieve, I quickly picked up everything I wanted to learn in the weeks leading up to the trip. The lessons have been made in collaboration with the world's leading language learning experts, and researchers from Yale have proven that with Babbel, everybody can pick up a new language in just 3 weeks. The courses are made to help you achieve your goals, regardless of if it is for travel, business, or just out of curiosity. And the Babbel app lets you easily learn on the go, combining writing, listening, speaking, and grammar into compact packages. Something that I particularly like is that Babbel encourages language learners to get out of their comfort zone and speak their new language.
Inglaterra. La Ventana.
You can get 60% off your subscription by using the link in the description. And if you're not satisfied, Babbel offers a 20-day money-back guarantee, so there's no reason to worry. Start learning now, and let me know what language you will start practicing. And now back to the Peruvian desert, which hugs the Pacific coast with one of the busiest metropolitan cities right in the middle of it. Lima, the capital of Peru, is the 4th most populated city of the entire continent, housing nearly 12 million people in its metropolitan area. With the outliers of the Andes starting just a few kilometers behind the coastline, the footprint of the city is elongated along the coast, leading to the furthest extensions of the city being separated by 92 kilometers of dense urban metropolis. Founded in 1535 by the Spanish explorer Pizarro, the city served as the capital for the Spanish presence in Peru and remained an influential stronghold throughout time. The population boom, however, is a more recent development, with internal unrests in Peru during the 20th century having pushed millions from the rural Andean Mountains to the capital in search for a better life. Today, these crowds put a big strain on the resources of the city, especially in regards to air pollution, which in many parts of the city remains at an unhealthy level for extended periods of time. But not all of Peru's coastline is bustling with development. Many stretches remain relatively untouched, dotted with national parks and tranquil beach towns. While the cold Peru current makes swimming less appealing for some, the water holds a different allure for a specific group of adventurers. Roughly 600 kilometers north of Lima lies the town of Puerto Malabrigo, a heaven for surfers drawn in by the world-renowned Chicama wave. This point break, formed by the interaction of consistent southwestern swells with a rocky headland, produces exceptionally long, rideable waves. Surfers can catch a wave at the start of the headland and ride it for over 4 kilometers, experiencing up to 240 seconds of pure uninterrupted surfing. With much of the coastline being dry and rocky desert, on satellite imagery there are also many green arteries which are extruding perpendicularly from the shoreline. All of these features have one thing in common, in that they are the rare occasions at which the meltwater of the Andean Mountains finds its way down to the Pacific Ocean. Across the full length of the Peruvian coast, a total of 61 glacial meltwater streams are draining these snow-capped mountains, which are constantly lurking over the rugged coast. And these landscapes are probably what Peru is most known for, bringing us to the next longitudinal belt of Peru, Chapter 2, the Peruvian Andes. While the 61 streams which rush down to the Pacific Ocean may seem like a significant portion of Peru's total freshwater, the hydrological distribution across the country is actually quite one-sided. Virtually all rain clouds traveling over the South American continent are getting stuck behind the Andean Mountains, whose lowest saddles along the length of Peru remain above 15,800 feet, or 4,800 meters in elevation. This places most of the discharge on the Amazonian hydrographic region, which carries 97% of the entire freshwater of Peru, while the Western Pacific hydrographic region only receives 1.7%. The remaining freshwater accumulates in the endorheic basin of the Altiplano, where it collects in Lake Titicaca. This uneven distribution puts the water management of Peru under immense stress, since 65% of the Peruvian population lives on the western side of the watershed. With the population growth and economic rise showing no signs of stopping anytime soon, the water demand in the desert will only increase in the coming years, and the limeños are expected to tap into more and more aquifers in their surroundings. The continental divide, which splits the hydrographic basins between the oceans, coincides with the first subrange of the Andes that you encounter behind the coast. Broadly speaking, the Peruvian Andes can be subdivided into 3 distinct subranges, which from west to east are called the Cordillera Occidental, Central, and Oriental. These can further be subdivided into 21 smaller ranges, containing the various distinct environments across the Peruvian Andes. As part of the Cordillera Occidental, which runs parallel to the coast, the Cordillera Blanca contains the tallest peak of Peru, with the 6,768-meter tall Mount Huascaran. The immense altitude of the twin peaks, paired with Earth's bulge, means that the southern summit of this mountain is the place on Earth with the weakest gravitational pull, a full 0.7% less than the strongest gravitational force on the surface of the Arctic Ocean. The summit of Mount Huascan falls less than 200 meters short of the tallest summit of the southern hemisphere. But it is not even the most famous summit of this mountain range. Just 20 kilometers north, in the next glacial ice field, the Artisan Raju stands just above 6,000 meters tall, but its steep pyramid shape has earned it the prominent place in the production logo of Paramount Pictures, but this has never been officially confirmed. In the 1970s, the subrange Cordillera Blanca alone contained 35% of Peru's glacial ice, and this number has increased to over 40% by the turn of the millennium. Standing alone, this statistic is very misleading, however, since the reason for the increase in glacial cover percentage is coming from the fact that other glaciers of Peru are simply receding a lot faster than the ones in the high Andes. Throughout the past 100 years, scientists estimate that surface cover of glaciers has decreased by 47% in the Andes. And while the melting rate has decreased in recent years, the future of the Andean glaciers does not look white. Behind a slim valley on the east of the Cordillera Occidental, the narrower Cordillera Central spreads from the border with Ecuador halfway through Peru before it intersects and merges with the Cordillera Oriental, the easternmost subsection of the Peruvian Andes. While generally laying a bit lower than its western neighbor, the Cordillera Oriental is very rich in archaeological artifacts, having accommodated the heart of the Incan civilization, which used to rule over western South America during the middle of the last millennia. Countless sites around the Andes act as a remembrance of the culture which once conquered these lands, until they were replaced by the Spanish Empire in the 16th century. Especially around the city of Cusco, which acted as the capital city of the Inca Empire. Many valleys and mountain ridges preserve some of the ancient cities, with the citadel of Machu Picchu being arguably the most famous archaeological site in the world. The southern ends of the Cordillera Occidental and Oriental are surrounding the massive highland plateau of Altiplano, which continues throughout Bolivia and into Chile. Being surrounded by higher mountains on all sides, any water participating into this plateau is trapped, forming the largest endorheic basin of South America. All the water on the Peruvian side of the basin drains into Lake Titicaca, which isn't just the largest lake of the entire continent, but with a surface elevation of 3,812 meters, also the highest navigable lake in the entire world, if you limit it to lakes with commercial ship traffic on it. With only a single outlet on the Bolivian side, Lake Titicaca is nearly a closed lake, and most of its inflow from the surrounding glaciers is actually balanced out by evapotranspiration from the intense sunlight at the high altitude. Throughout the whole Peruvian Andes, there are many more natural wonders scattered around, which are attracting millions of tourists from all over the world every year. In the southern region, the Colca Canyon has been carved up to 3,400 meters deep into the Andes, and is reigned by the Andean condor, a vulture with a wingspan of up to 3.3 meters, making it the largest bird in the world. Further to the northeast, Vinicunca showcases the turbulent geological past of the region, boasting a mountain range colored in red, orange, yellow, green, purple and gray bands of different minerals. The iron, sulfide, chloride, limestone and geothite have been deposited on the former seafloor during the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras of Earth's geological history, and have since been uplifted to over 5,000 meters into the atmosphere, as part of the mountain building event which created the Andean Mountains. Considering how unique and beautiful the mountains of Vinicunca are, one would assume that the region is put under strict protection, allowing all future generations to admire it. In the mid-2010s, however, Vinicunca just barely survived the outrageous plan of the Canadian mining company Camino Minerals Corporation, which applied for mining the copper across the mountain. After initially receiving a permit in 2018, public outcry eventually convinced the Peruvian Ministry of Energy and Mining to reconsider their decision, eventually placing the whole of Ausangate, which includes the Rainbow Mountains of Vinicunca, under regional conservation. The density of protected areas in Peru increases as you travel the Andes northwards, and countless more spectacular snow-covered mountains glacial ice sheets, peculiar vegetation, and turquoise mountain lakes are scattered throughout the summits and valleys. As already discussed, 97% of these waters are draining towards the east of the Andes and into the massive watershed of the Amazon River. The furthest reaches of the second longest river in the world actually originate in the remote Peruvian subranges. But what exactly the source of the Amazon River is still debated to this date. Depending on who you ask, some define the source of a river by the largest discharge volume of a headstream, by the longest length, or even by the highest altitude of a headstream. And in the case of the Amazon, these classifications apply to 3 different potential rivers. For the longest time, the Marañón River was the undisputed source, and many still consider it as such, since it contributes the largest volume of water in the backland of the Amazon basin. But other contenders have been disputing this claim in recent decades. A 1971 expedition by the National Geographic Society identified the Mantravo River to be about 70 kilometers longer than the Marañón River, and due to the year-long continuous water flow, even though way less in volume, it is also considered the main stem of the Amazon River. Lastly, the Apacheta Creek also enters the chat by having the highest elevated source. But regardless of which stream you define as the true source of the Amazon, either of them brings you to a completely different environment from the Andean Mountains, with an enormous basin of tropical rainforests and massive streams, expanding till the Atlantic shores, bringing us to Chapter 3, the Peruvian Amazon. As we descend the Andes, the climate and environment finally transitions into what one would typically imagine when traveling through tropical latitudes. Roughly from the altitude of 4,000 meters and below, the mystic cloud forests of Peru cover the receding mountain slopes, with a constant low-hanging cloud cover shrouding the forest in a mysterious fog. As a testament to the Andes' cloud-retaining abilities, the highest sections of the cloud forests experience close to 100% cloud cover all year round, which also hangs quite low over the canopy, in many cases even intersecting it and playing an important part in the hydrological cycle. The extra dense canopies of these rainforests collect the cloud's moisture when they condense on the leaves and needles, which then drips to the ground from where it is being incorporated into the forest. As much as 20% of the forest's entire water household can be attributed to this mechanism, and a sudden recedence of the dense canopy cover can have detrimental effects on the life which is lurking below. With nearly no sunlight reaching the lower levels of the forest strata, a nutrient-poor and relatively acidic peat layer as a base, and a challenging topography with lots of water runoff, leaching even more nutrients out of the soil, as well as relatively low temperatures, which slows the natural decomposition of biomatter. Rainforests, and particularly cloud forests, are already a fragile ecosystem, constantly on the edge of what is evolutionarily possible. So illegal logging, mining, and the erection of industrial-scale plantations may pose the straw on the camel's back for these forests, and globally they have been in a constant decline in recent decades. Especially Peru's neighbor Colombia has only about 20% of their cloud forest remaining compared to the first recordings about 100 years ago, and Peru is struggling as well. While not boasting as many species as the lowland rainforest further to the east, the constraints of the environment have created an immense number of unique and endemic species, which need to be protected. Depending on the exact definition and the mapping method, the Peruvian cloud forest covers only 2 to 5% of the land area, but houses 25 to 30% of all species found in the country, with an exceptionally high variance in orchids, ferns, birds, and amphibians. Leaving the high altitude of the cloud forest behind, the vast expanse of the more traditional rainforest opens up in front of us, covering a total of 60% of the Peruvian landmass and introducing the Amazon basin, the largest river basin in the world. Starting off as hundreds of small streams and creeks, the water masses from the Andean slopes eventually start combining their force, forming the recognizable main stem of the Amazon River. By the time the Amazon leaves the Peruvian territory at the gauging station in Tabatinga, at the tri-point border between Brazil, Colombia, and Peru, it has already amassed a discharge volume averaging 45,000 cubic meters per second. And if the river were to end here, it would already rank as the river with the highest discharge volume globally. At this point, however, the river has only completed a quarter of its course through the South American continent. Once all the drainage basin has been pulled together, the river ends up with a discharge averaging 209,000 cubic meters per second, equal to the discharge of the next 6 most voluminous rivers, the Ganges, Congo, Orinoco, Yangtze, Negro, and Madeira rivers combined. As the slope of the Amazon and its tributaries decreases further inland, the rivers start heavily meandering through the rainforest, creating thousands of little river islands and oxbow lakes along the way. While most of the river and its tributaries are easily navigable by boat, transportation through the region has often posed a challenge, and the populations east and west of the Andean Mountains have for the longest time been very disconnected. To visualize just how treacherous the journey would be, until the advent of commercial aviation, travelers in Iquitos, the largest Peruvian city in the rainforest, which would like to visit the capital Lima, would rather sail down the entire length of the Amazon River, up the Atlantic coast, cross the Panamanian Isthmus, and sail down the Pacific again, instead of covering the 1,000 kilometers to the southwest. To this date, there are no roads connecting Iquitos to the outside world, but it presents one of the best gateways for people to visit and explore the incredible hinterland of Peru. And with this final stop, our journey across Peru comes to a close. Covering half of the globe's climate zones, the driest desert, some of the tallest mountains, and the extremely biodiverse rainforests, it is easily a top contender as the most interesting country in the world. If you want to learn more about the most incredible countries and regions of our planet, be sure to subscribe, and thanks again to Babbel for making this video possible. Get 60% of your subscription by using the link in the description and get ready for your next trip. See you in the next video. Cheers.